We want to recognize the bright and refreshing mind of this next speaker. She's a fresh 4 years into the industry, but demonstrates that mindset and grit from a place of passion can get you results for yourself and for the people you serve. As a learning consultant, she plays in the space of edtech product development, working with clients such as Facebook, Google, HSBC, and some exciting startups too. She has a graduate degree in education from Harvard and is the Rising Star Award winner at the LPI's Learning Awards 2020, the experimental, ever curious, problem-solving Egle Vinauskaite. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, finally, we're here.
We are here. Well, people watching this episode, you know what's happening. When you see people on screen, it's going to be interactive. So we will be answering your questions live through Hannah, so get them through. But let's get into a little conversation, shall we? You didn't come through the traditional L&D kind of pathway. You've kind of experimented your way through things like VR and apps and working for massive brands with big mission. How did you get started and what's the go with your trajectory?
Yeah, so you're right. I did not have a typical background for a learning designer or pretty much anybody working in learning. I wasn't a teacher, a facilitator, a graphic designer, none of those things. I was a business analyst. And I had no experience as of 4 years ago. I had no experience in this industry other than my just deep understanding of human development because of my degree in that. And yeah, a lot of reading because I couldn't get a job and nobody wanted to hire me. So I had to fill up my idle time. And I guess instinctively it felt right that learning design should be more than digital courses, because if you think about the industry that we are in, it's very easy to find purpose in our work. It's education, it's learning, it's helping people develop, it's helping people reach their goals. So we can have outsized impact and we can work with technology. So why are we often settling for the lowest common denominator, which would be, a 30-minute click next course to come with a quiz at the end? And I guess there is also another facet of it, is this another idea of specialism, where in some professions, specialisms make sense. I think in our profession, learning design definitely, and probably parts of L&D in general, they don't make as much sense. We are borrowing a lot from other disciplines, from marketing, behavioral science, product development, tech in general. And I would go as far as to say that having a narrow area of expertise makes you blind to all the nuance in the problems that you're solving. And at the end of the day, you need to respect the profession. You need to respect what you're doing. You need to know what you're talking about. And if you are not doing that, frankly, you're shortchanging your clients because you're developing subpar solutions. And you're shortchanging yourself because when our industry runs into trouble, your limited client list and your limited toolbox, they're going to be pretty useless. So I'm always surprised when I'm approached and asked about what builds or which industries do you specialize in. I don't specialize. I don't think anybody should as learning designers. And all of these convictions and all of this context that has made me seek out projects that all have this fundamental learning design at the core, but the approaches and mediums are very different. So from blended digital, face-to-face, immersive, scrappy and big budget, apps, resources, courses, you name it. And of course, that was scary, especially at first. Needed to become comfortable with being uncomfortable and not knowing all the answers and dealing with a lot of rejection. Needed to learn on the job very quickly through these, what I call mini experiments, and of course, being strategic about what I do next to position myself in that way.
Wow. Okay, let's pull up a poll, people of the audience. We want to know about you and how you're feeling. So, poll people, you have the power.
Okay, so the question is, how confident do you feel about doing things for the first time? We got A, don't have a problem. I do something all the time. I often doubt myself. I feel really anxious and I can't get too overwhelmed by doubt.
Yeah, Yeah, it will be interesting to compare it with the results of a
Well,
similar
I
poll that I
think that
posted
we
on
have a
LinkedIn.
winner, and it is B. I often doubt myself, but power through, and that was 56%, Egle.
56, doubt yourself. And what about the first one, doing something new? What's the
Yep.
percentage there?
So that was 28%. C, we had 6%, and D, we had 11%.
How would
This
you
is
like
quite
to
fast.
respond?
No, this is quite interesting because the percentages are very similar to what I got on the LinkedIn poll. There, I also got 64 on option B, which is about I doubt myself, but I power through, and I got 32, which is similar to our 28 about I just do new things all the time. So it's always very soothing to understand that it's not just you.
Well, that's what I want to chat about now is, like, it sounds like you are not afraid to take on a challenge. And if you get a project or a task, you're saying yes to it. And you're not worried that you don't know how to do it because, like, we can't really know everything and the world changes every day. So how are we supposed to keep up? So Egle, tell us about saying yes to things that you don't know how you do yet, but you learn on the job.
So that's a good question. It's a muscle, I guess. The more you do these things, the more confidence you get and the more confidence you have to draw from. Because if I'm feeling really unsure about something, I go back to that time in the past when I completed something that I had been unsure about before, and I draw confidence from that. But definitely, there's some research done, and if someone's really diligent about it, you can challenge me and DM me after this talk for the source, about how experts deal with failure much easier than novices. Because when you have the body of work, it's much easier for you to let a few failures go because that does not damage your self-esteem and your confidence. So I would say that the first thing would be seek out these projects, and all of this, just to reiterate, this is about, like, you have to be good, you have to have the skill. It's just that overcoming this irrational doubt. And yeah, that the body of work, I would say that is the first step.
Okay, well, sounds so easy.
It's like,
talk to me about the attributes of your mindset. Like, imposter syndrome is such a common thing, but it's like, well, you obviously have strategies to manage that. What are they? What are you doing? Teach us your ways.
Okay, so if you think about the imposter syndrome, and I'm definitely, I can think of a really good story that pretty much illustrates my inner monologue. So 10 years ago, I was a fresh graduate, and I was working on this career coaching idea for new graduates, and I told of this idea to two of my friends. And one friend responded saying that, "Who are you to you're 22? Who are you to teach other 22-year-olds how to get a job and how to become employable?" And then I told another friend, and he said that, "This is great. You're 22, you're just graduated. That means that you have probably 2 more years of experience than somebody who's in their second year. And therefore, there's this wealth of experience that you can share that is quite unique, that a career services officer cannot relate." So this is pretty much, my inner monologue. One part is saying that, "Who are you to be doing this?" The other part is saying that, I mean, whatever you are doing, of course, there are people who may be better at it than you, but at the same time, there are so many people who could learn from what you have to offer. So I think that would be the first, the first thing that I remind myself. Even this morning, I was so intimidated about this talk, talk about meta, and that's essentially the monologue running through my head. That, I may not have all the answers, but I've been there and I can share my progress so far.
Yeah, wow. Any questions, Hannah, so far from the audience before we continue?
Yeah, so we had a question from Nirad, and he's asked, can you elaborate on mini experiments?
Yes, sure. So I really like this idea about treating the tasks that you do at work not as tasks but as experiments. So that means that instead of saying, for example, I have a client call, instead of thinking, oh, it's just a call, you're being very self-aware about what you're doing. So specifically, you start out with a hypothesis. This is how I think this task should be accomplished, or this problem should be solved. And you think about the outcomes that you're expecting. And once you finish that task, you look back and think about, have I achieved those outcomes? And if not, then what happened? And what does that tell me about my strengths and weaknesses? Mm-hmm. So an example of that would be as simple as a client call. I have 30 minutes. I have to talk about X and Y, and I need to get to Z by the end of the call. The call finishes, I don't have my Z. I don't have much to work on. So instead of just letting it go and thinking, okay, I'm going to need another call, well, yeah, genius. But you stop yourself there and you take maybe 5 minutes and think about, okay, so what broke that call? What were the breaking points? What specific, I don't know, maybe 3 questions should I ask on my next call with a new client for me to be able to get to my Z at the end of it? Mm. So that's one example. Another example would be completing a task within a larger project. So very specifically, I was creating an assessment framework for a product. And my hypothesis was like, I was very clear about what I wanted to do and what it would entail. I had all the information. So, one day of work, by the end of the day, I'm going to have my assessment framework. And I spent all of that time. And the next day, me and the team, we sat together and realized that we really did not need that framework. The problem we were solving is that we needed to show our learners their progress. And there might have been very much easier ways to do that instead of creating this back end of underlying calculations. And the lesson that I got from that is that, and this is something I do right now with every project, is that whenever I know that I'm going to have to dive deep into something, I ask myself, am I still solving the real problem, or am I just getting lost in the details? And this is literally This was the lesson, very clear lesson, and this is literally what I do. I sit down, and this is my first thought. Yeah. So these would be mini experiments.
Awesome. Okay, I want you to think of a failure you've had recently, right? Where you've had that emotional, like, oh no, like why, or some critical thing where you have had you've beaten yourself up. Mm-hmm. Got one in mind?
Depends on your question, but I think I
well, can. I want to understand, you've got that, you're beating yourself up for whatever it was. How did you move forward through that?
So for me, so a few things I would like to say about this point. So first of all, understanding that everybody goes through these periods of self-doubt. There's this very fascinating concept in social psychology called pluralistic ignorance. It's the fact that as a minority, as an individual, I think that my opinion is in the minority and the majority is thinking something else, while in reality, every individual in the majority thinks that they are in the minority and nobody's saying anything. So that's pluralistic ignorance. And if you think about it, that's just a perfect mechanism for how that doubt and that confidence issues and that imposter syndrome, how it works, is that I'm sitting here beating myself up thinking that I completely failed. Because everybody else is so confident and know what they're doing. And what I don't realize is that as our poll has shown, is that everybody's battling these feelings and they're just moving on despite all of these things. And just also realizing that I am part of that majority who are projecting the confident image. So you're also part of the problem. And one thing that really helped me is meeting people who I admire and having a chat with them and asking them about how they got where they are. And it's either they're going to explicitly tell you of all the self-doubt, because the story is usually, I had no idea what I was doing, somehow it worked out. So that's the honest story. And obviously, if you're doing something new, there are going to be failures, because if you're not failing, that means that you are just being so comfortable, or you just are closing yourself out from any feedback about your failures. Or you're going to read between the lines about that person's journey and realize just how much doubt they've gone through. So whenever I feel doubt, I just remind myself that everyone's silent, but everyone's going through these periods. So I think that would be one thing. And another thing in terms of dealing with that would be finding a mechanism for yourself, and this is very individual, that would help you deal with these failures. So for example, for me, things like a contract falling through, or finishing early, which is very easy to say that, was it because of me? Did I do something wrong? Or if I didn't get a contract, is that because, like, what's wrong with my portfolio? Because I'm presenting myself based on my work. What I tell myself, and that works for me, is that it always works out. If something falls through, that means that there is an even better thing coming. And this has worked consistently for me over the last 4 years. If there was something that I really wanted and I didn't get it, 2 weeks later or a month later, something came up that I wouldn't have been able to do had I gotten that first contract. And just one more thing here is that it's important to find that mechanism that makes you feel better about yourself, but it's also important not to self-handicap. And this is apparently a thing, a psychological phenomenon, which is about people, self-handicapping is when people do not put in the effort to achieve something that they want, so that they can preserve their self-esteem by saying that because I didn't really try, the fact that I didn't get it does not reflect on my abilities. So an example of that would be a job interview or a contract or a client call or something that matters to you, and you're just not preparing for it. Because if you prepared for it, if you really showed all that you are and all that you can do, and you didn't get it, that would really, really hurt. And a lot of people, apparently, enough people are doing this for there to be a term to describe that.
Yeah.
So don't do it.
So we don't want to expose ourselves almost. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So audience, I want to know, when it comes to imposter syndrome, what challenges do you face? What comes up for you? Start sharing that in the chat. We're going to come back to it in a second. I'm curious though, this human behavior, these phenomenal, I don't even know the word, phenomenons that you're talking about. I'm really curious. Are there any other ones out there that you could kind of label for us? Because I feel like that will debunk all the shit that goes on in our heads.
No other ones come to my head, because these phenomena are just something that I would come across while reading and exploring this, and just finally labeling, oh, so this is what I've been feeling. And I cannot think of any others off the top. I can just think of other strategies to deal with the syndrome. But yeah.
Go on. Tell us more strategies.
So one of the bad things that you might do for yourself is you look at other people's LinkedIn profiles, and you look at their experience, and you start thinking that, oh my God, I'm a learning designer, they're a learning designer, but look at what they have on their LinkedIn. What have I been doing even? What am I even? And I've realized through experience that when it's easy to either really beat yourself up that, oh my God, they have been in this industry for 4 years. I have also been for 4 years, and look at what they have achieved. Or it's very easy to start thinking of excuses for them. So, maybe they're from a different country, they are from a different family, they have different educational background. So therefore that does not apply. So I'm not going to aspire to that. So that would be similar probably to self-handicapping. But what really helped me is whenever I come across somebody whose LinkedIn profile and whose work experience looks super impressive and like intimidatingly impressive, I just go through it line by line. And if you do that, you realize that it's just a symphony of words and phrases and the whole presentation of things. And if you really look at it, you realize that you're also doing pretty similar things. You're just not describing them like that. So that really helps, by like, to not think that I'm falling behind. I'm just all right. I just need a little touch up.
Yep.
In terms of yeah. Other things is, of course, putting yourself forward for things. So this is something that I mentioned in the beginning. Just sucking it up and saying yes. The doubt is always in the back of your mind, probably, but just don't indulge it. Just don't think about it. At the end of the day, you have to take that step. So there is no way to push yourself, to make yourself take that jump other than just doing it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you start talking yourself down from these things, just catch yourself in that moment. Another thing is not to use self-deprecating language anywhere, especially on LinkedIn, especially if you're speaking somewhere. Just the language that is about somehow I achieved this, or I accidentally became that. No, you did not. There was a lot of hard work, and you need to appreciate that, and you need to gift yourself that feeling of satisfaction and of achievement. And this is another piece of, you asked about about a principle, a phenomenon. It's called the pratfall effect in behavioral science, which is the fact that people who have faults, they're looked as more likable, so the faults humanize you, but only once you have established your competence. So do not start humanizing yourself by talking just putting everywhere, talking publicly about how you are unsure before you have this body of work or whatever works in your in your context to show that I have achieved this and I'm just telling my story, instead of like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I shouldn't be here. So yeah.
That's really cool. It reminds me of a book I've finished recently. I think the author is called Trevor Moawad or something, Moawad. And he talks about eliminating negative talk. And so he's come from a sports performance space. So he works with like the big American football teams and stuff. And what he started doing with sports performers is, in the locker room or on the field, no negative talk. And it was literally down to, a really hot day, they're sweating, they're not allowed to complain. They're not allowed to be like, oh, I need a glass of water or need something like that, because even that negative talk puts you into a certain state. And they said the performance of removing language from the locker room it could only be neutral, and he doesn't even go be positive. He's like, who cares about being positive? Just be neutral. And he said the performance of the teams, by just eliminating even little throwaway comments, greatly impacted performance as an overall collective team, which I thought was pretty cool. Hannah, I want to go back to the imposter syndrome and the challenges that people may be facing in the chat. What kind of things come up for them, are they saying?
So we had a realization of self-handicapping. So I think we've had someone realize that. We also had a comment, in addition to all the dimensions to our role, it gets hard when SMEs expect us to be experts in their field. And that's all we've got at the moment.
Any thoughts, Egle? How would you respond to that?
I mean, expecting, well, kudos for recognizing self-handicapping, first of all. Um, when I first read it, I actually had a few realizations myself about the things that I do that would fall within that category. In terms of experts, in terms of SMEs expecting us to be experts, that's I haven't encountered that in my work. I don't know if it's because of the types of projects that I work on. I usually have another SME who's familiar with the subject matter, or at least if it's something that I can Google and quickly upskill myself in, that there's somebody to review things to make sure that it's not just me talking nonsense and spreading blasphemy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Another question that's come through. So Sophie has said, I find Americans might be better at honestly celebrating their achievements than we are in the UK, where it's seen as bragging. Do you find some nations or cultures have worse imposter syndrome than others?
Well, definitely there is this joke about how the majority of Eastern Europeans think that they are below average, and the majority of Americans think that they are above average. So the fact that most people,
audience members,
and I'm saying this as being originally from Eastern Europe, so this is a running joke even there. That I think that yes, in my experience, especially living in the States, that it's much more comfortable to celebrate your achievements in the US. I'm not going to make a judgment whether they're warranted or not, because when somebody's celebrating, I'm not in a position to tell if they're celebrating a real thing. I just do like when people celebrate and bring up their achievements. In terms of it, in the UK, definitely there is a lot of discomfort about tooting your own horn. It makes there are, of course, probably gender differences as well. So yeah, I would say that it varies from culture to culture, and probably even your own upbringing. How is it? What was it like in Australia?
Well, I think they have tall poppy syndrome, which I'm not 100% sure on. I'm from Ireland originally, but it's like they try to cut down the tallest poppy. Yeah, in the chat, explain it better. I'm not doing it justice. And on that note, I'll throw to Hannah again. Do you have questions from the audience for Egle?
That's all we have at the moment, Kim.
Okay, cool. What I would love the audience to do is just reflect on the attributes and characteristics that you are witnessing that Egle has for herself. I'd love you to put that into the chat at the moment. What kinds of things are you noticing about her belief or the way she thinks about things, how she reflects herself, how she moves forward through things? She's demonstrating some behaviors. Yep. So what are we noticing?
We have had a question come through, Kim.
Okay, fine.
Someone has asked, can you kindly share any references or books to learn more in social psychology?
I usually learn about it from podcasts. So my favorite one when it comes to social psychology and behavioral science type things, it's not really specialized, but this is where I get all the best ones. So that would be of course when I'm on air, forget the name. It's You're Not So Smart. Yeah, so that's the one, and it really has a fascinating episode on pluralistic ignorance, and they also talk about the imposter syndrome in that way. So this is where I got the idea from. This was like the light bulb moment. Like, yes, exactly. This is what's happening.
That's very cool. Have we had any responses to the attributes or characteristics that people are observing in Egle?
Yeah, so we had growth mindset was one that came through. Through twice, that one. So I think that one is a standout. We also have another question. So Emma has asked, on the note of celebration, how do you contribute to uplifting others to help with their imposter syndrome?
So one thing I always try to do is that when somebody comes with an idea, I try, well, not just that I don't allow myself to shoot that idea down, first of all. It's very easy to find people who doubt you. Everybody can think, even you in your head, obviously, can think of a million reasons why something's not going to work out. You don't need that kind of people around you. So if somebody comes to me with an idea, I try to encourage them. And another interesting thought that I heard in another podcast is that even if you think that the idea is good, but there is a little thing that can make it even better, shut your trap. Because because the thing is that when the idea is just this little fragile thing that somebody is considering, if you say that, oh yeah, this is great, but what if you just tweak this thing, it's going to make it even better, it kind of takes the wind off their sails. It's really it's counterintuitive, because you mean well and you're kind of encouraging them. But the thing is that if there is something that would make the idea better, they're going to discover it in the process of making it happen. And if they have a problem, you can just offer that, if you run into any problems, like, go for it. I'm here for you. If you have any questions or need to bounce ideas around, this is the best thing you can do, instead of offering your unsolicited advice about tweaks.
Yeah, that's cool. For those of you saying the growth mindset stuff, if you're not aware, Carol Dweck has a really cool TED Talk, and there's also a book called Mindset that she's written that's really worth having a listen to or reading. Egle, is your personal why and your work why, are they aligned? I feel like they are for you.
Absolutely. I changed careers. So that was a very deliberate step, because I didn't want to work in financial analysis. I wanted to work somewhere where I could help people develop. And this was something that I used to do in my free time. And I decided that, what if I merged it with my professional life? Then that's something good will come out of it. So definitely helping people develop and encouraging them, and as I said, I try not to offer my unsolicited advice, and I'm getting better at it. At least I hope so. But yeah, just supporting people, because once you realize that sometimes people don't have anyone else to go to talk about these ideas, or by ideas, I don't mean just business ideas or something out there. I'm talking about simple things like, should I take this job, or should I approach this project in that way? If somebody is trusting you with that kind of vulnerability, it's a privilege to pick them up. I would say, and really enjoy that, doing both personally and professionally.
That's really cool. It's really, really cool. If we think about the future and things like career longevity, how do you keep skills sharp and in demand, and, especially with a changing market?
Oh yeah, so there are a few things. One of them is just understanding what's happening in the industry. It's not enough that you log into LinkedIn every full moon. You need to know where the industry is going. What I used to do, especially earlier in my career, is that I would look at job ads. It doesn't matter if it's perm, contract, whatever. Just look at job ads that would be a little bit ahead of you, maybe 2 years ahead of you. Look at all the requirements, and then sort of work it back to where you are, and create a roadmap for yourself in terms of what kind of projects I should prioritize, what kind of experiences I should seek out, the people I should approach who could open doors for me to get those things. So that's one. Another thing is having a chat with recruiters. even being honest with them that, if you see a really exciting position and you're honest with them that either I'm not available or don't have the skill set for that position, could you send me the job ad? Or could you at least, if you cannot, just send me the list of requirements so that I know what it takes to get that position? And it really helps structure your thoughts, because it's very easy to react to the immediate requirements. You start getting calls, or somebody approaches you on LinkedIn with various opportunities, and you're like, okay, I meet these criteria, and there's this one thing. No, look ahead, look at where it's going. So that would be that. And I guess another thing would be, if you can afford to, say no to the kinds of projects or work that you can complete with your eyes closed. And this is quite a peculiar one, because there are so many reasons not to do that. If you're an expert in something, you draw a lot of pride in it. There's obviously an upfront cost that you have to pay to get to this level.
Yeah.
It's easier to sell if you're specialized and you say that, I can do this for you, no problem. I've done this 10 times already with these big brands. But if you just set your ego aside for a minute and try to not take the projects that do not challenge you.
Yeah.
That means that, it's going to be really queasy in the beginning, but this is how you start building that body of experiences that empower you personally to take on different things and bigger and better things, and even improve whatever you're creating for your clients or employer.
That's very cool. All right, last question, quickly. In terms of receiving feedback, what's one thing you want the audience to know that they should take on and put into action when receiving feedback?
Do not just receive it, and do not respond to it. Do not respond in your head to it. It's very easy to say that, oh yeah, like, thank you for your feedback, but in your head is like, but you kind of screwed up on your end, so that's why it didn't work out on my end. So that's pretty much the immediate reaction, because we like to preserve our self-esteem and feel good about ourselves. Just breathe through it. Do not do that, and just proactively think about, even if it's not your fault, whatever, for example, negative feedback, why that happened. Think about, what was it? What could you have done it? Like, really put in the effort to think that, even if it wasn't on me, even if I think it's unfair, what could I have done in hindsight that wouldn't have resulted in that situation?
I think the last final word on everything that you've said is stop. There is a choice. There's a choice behind where you are now and the next decision you make. So take the pause. Egle, you've been brilliant. Thank you so much for the value that you've shared. I really appreciate all of the tips. Thank you for being at the Learning Conference.
Thank you very much.